Yo, I'm calling you. I'm calling you right now. Right here and now. I'm calling you. I'm calling you. I am calling you. I am calling. I hope you're here. Is that a guy? It's like a Russian media guy. Hello.
Hello, Lucy.
Hello. Would you like to be on the camera?
I can do camera, sure.
Yeah.
My mic is going to look funny because I had to do a thing, so it's just going to look funny.
It's
And that's
okay.
the way
It
it works.
means that I will have what should I say? How should I call it? An advantage against you.
Ah, yes, yes. You will decimate me because of this.
Yes, decimate. So I will remove 1/10 of you.
Yes. Yeah. Fair enough.
See, I know what decimate means. I'm not just some foreigner.
Well, you know how I feel about foreigners, so that's good.
True. So,
That was a joke. That was a joke, by the way, for anyone watching. Sorry, I get a little sarcastic sometimes. I've been in a mood because I've been working with a company project that kind of has gone south, and I'm managing it, and it's a whole thing. So it's
oh,
having a nightmare of time.
I was
But
uh
this will be a nice break.
I was just about to ask you how you were.
The family's good. Kids are great, which is what matters, really.
Yeah,
Work has been stressful and nightmarish for some time, but hey, when is it not?
true. I've been
So,
having my sort
otherwise,
of worries, which causes my stomach to hurt, but
yeah, it's life is what it is.
it's true. What do you know?
So, what is it we're actually going to debate today?
Well, you had two topics for me.
Oh, yeah, I think the original one was actually going to be about how um, I made a comment about enjoying parts of Russian culture or things from Russia that you
Yeah,
took exception to because I was being a little flippant when I said it,
yeah.
and I don't think it was as bad
I'm trying to
as I
find
think
you.
it may have come across, and it'd be worth exploring that because I think it's a fair thing.
I mean, we
I
can explore it, but I sort of feel like we've talked it over a lot, but in
We
the
have,
in the DMs, no?
I mean, a little bit, yeah,
Okay,
but
so
I
you
I
start.
feel unsatisfied with my answer because I still think I'm not happy with how I stated that, but I'm not able to really say how. I don't know if
Right.
that makes sense.
It makes
Like
sense.
I think I was wrong-ish, but I know there's parts where it like let's say the idea or what I was saying had like a bunch of parts. Some of the parts are just true. Like I was trying to say this thing, but it added this other stuff. But I'm
Yeah.
not quite sure how to get at the things.
That's because of
So
the complicated nature of Russia itself, in
it's
my opinion.
very complex. Um,
I
and
don't
it's
know
one of
how
those
to
things that
get you on the screen.
that's okay. I'm not a very attractive person, so that's not a big deal.
Hold on.
My voice is really what matters after all.
That is true.
Um,
Still, I would like to have you on the.
um,
I think I know. Oh, wait, I know. Okay, continue, and I will work it out as I try. Okay, now it should work. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, continue.
hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. You tell me. I don't know if I'm on screen. I don't have you on because otherwise I'll have echoes and echoes.
Oh, I'm trying. I'm trying my best.
If you don't have to, it's not gonna. I'm not gonna be too upset about it.
Yeah.
More just want to discuss because I think the history of it's really fascinating because Russia is. Um, I feel like I'm older than you. I don't want to guess your age, but it's one of those things that like for
Do I
half my
look
life.
old?
No, that's why I said I'm pretty sure I'm older than you.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
Okay, I
so that
forgive you.
means you're younger than me. I'm pretty sure. You might
Yeah.
not be. I don't. I'm shit with age judging anyway. But half my life, Russia was a much bigger thing
Mm-hmm.
for most of it actually, up until like even in the late '90s. Like it's literally half my life is 2000. By the way, that's like half of my life is like right there. Yeltsin and everything fucking happened after was the second half of my life, and so for half my life
Mm-hmm.
that was Russia. Then one of my really, really good friends is a Tartar, a Russian guy from Moscow, and wonderful dude named Ruslan. Probably one of my favorite people. He and his wife.
You are on screen
Um,
now.
and uh, you know, I got to know kind of a lot more about the culture through him. I mean, he's a Muscovite. He's from Moscow,
Right.
and I think most of my familiarity at that point was kind of through him or through what I grew up learning about. And in America, we have a very difficult relationship and history with Russia, to say the least,
Well,
right?
wait till I tell you about. I mean, I'm from Poland, so
Well, true. I more mean from like an informational front,
because
because
in Poland you just basically learn from early primary school about. I mean, you learn history of Poland, so you learn about Russification, you learn about the partitions, you learn about how Poland, the creation of the puppet kingdom of you know within Russia, etc. So you have all that history. You basically have Poland becoming a nation state for 20 years between World War One and Two, and then just losing its sovereignty till 1989.
and in America, we learn none of that. And I'm saying that as someone who, like, my family is part Polish. My
Right.
grandpa is very Polish and proud of it. And I didn't learn any of this shit until I want to say like 5 or 6 years ago, just to like, it's just the nature of when I happened to come across it. Um, and because our relationship with Russia was really one of their a big evil thing, like all of it, and
So yeah,
not
you're gonna
any
have
real
this band
details.
to do first aid if you need be.
Well, it's just a really fascinating sort of my when I say Russian, it's a very large cultural thing because that's really my first integration with the word was talking about the overall culture, which involves, as I've learned and as you have corrected me, involves kind of a lot of other cultures that
Yeah,
Russia went, that's us. Like,
yeah,
hey, that's our thing. How you doing? That's actually Russian now.
yeah,
Borscht, borscht, that's Russian. That's Russian stuff. That's
yeah. Even though
fucking
it's
super.
more
It's like,
broadly Slavic and actually started in Ukraine.
yeah, well, and Ukraine, that's ours too, as they've once again said.
Yeah,
Because like for me, Ukraine until I was like 16 or 17, Ukraine was a country. I knew its capital thanks to school and Risk. That was kind of the Ukraine for me. Was Risk. Um,
yeah.
Not
And
saying I'm
now
proud
it's
of it.
not Risk
That's
and it's not the Ukraine.
yeah. So it's when you talk about these things, and then I got to know and actually work with, and I visited Ukraine actually a good amount. I got to spend a lot of time in Dnipro, which is on the very eastern front almost.
Yeah,
Um, and
it's where
uh,
the U.S. where journalists go,
it is.
sort of to the east, to the front line.
Oh, yeah, it was really fascinating. Dnipro River goes through Chernobyl down, and the city of the Dniprovchek, I think is how you pronounce it. Um, the friends I made there, I have for a very long time. We went fishing together and ate extraordinary food and drank probably too much. And I
It's the
got to kind
Slavic
of
way to
hear,
drink too much.
well, that's a human way to drink too
Even
much.
though
I don't
I
know.
drink almost none, but every rule has an
Eh,
exception.
yeah, everyone else. I've been to Poland. Everyone else is making up for it. Don't worry.
Yeah,
Um,
I know. In
the
Poland, when you work in a corporation, I used to work in a corporation for a bit. Like when the weekend comes, uh, people basically ask, "So where are you gonna be drinking over the weekend?"
when you go there, well, and this is true of a lot of places in the U.S. It's not as hardcore. Uh,
Yeah, the beer
China,
is weaker in the U.S.
China, Japan, uh, any of the sort of Eastern Bloc countries, like in general,
Or drunks,
it
drunkards.
you go drink. You don't like go out and have a couple drinks with people after work. If you're
Yeah.
visiting, they're taking you to drink,
Oh yeah.
and it's an experience. Um, But like this is so I got to learn a lot, and a lot of the fun jokes they tell are very much about Russian appropriation of everything.
Yeah.
Um, and like they have these, and I'm not sure if they're offensive things to say. Just I'm just saying this is what lots of people were making jokes about is things like how they even claim like I think it's Brezhnev, like all the great leaders of Russia. He's like they're actually Ukrainian, but Russians want to call them Russian, and I'm like,
Right.
really? Like because I'm dumb. They're like, no,
Like he
it's
was
like they're
the leader of the. I have here, Mr. Like, you have the Khrushchev guy, right?
Khrushchev.
Khrushchev was like the uh, at the
I
top of
think
the Ukrainian Communist Party.
most of their leaders, best leaders, were actually Ukrainians.
Yeah, I have this
Is
little
kind of how these guys argue
underground
it.
printed from 56 speech of Khrushchev
Oh my
on the
god.
cult of, on the cult of the, oh, what's the term in English? Of cult of personality, I guess,
Yeah, it's
and
called
its
personality. There you go.
consequences is the speech that Khrushchev gave after Stalin died, translated
I
to
love that.
Polish. This little edition from 56. And what
But
makes it unique because you probably can get a translation of the Khrushchev speech anywhere now, But what makes this unique that it has the intro from the people that sort of created this booklet with their commentary on the speech as it was fresh. So they basically lambasted it by saying, yeah, sure, Khrushchev is criticizing Stalin, but he's not really attacking the system, is he? There's this guy who basically deported so many millions of Poles, Lithuanians, etc. And somehow he's not criticized, even though among the criteria of deportation, which I find hilarious, is that they deported spies, military personnel, and stamp collectors.
let's be fair. I've had a few friends who were stamp collectors.
Because if you're a
I buy it.
stamp collector, then you must
They're
have
not
some
pleasant people.
weird connections abroad. That was the logic.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Because
I
you have
actually now
foreign
I want to go
stamps.
back and look at the stamps that they had at the time because there has to be some reason for that. That's a little capricious to be that silly. I
So
like
yeah.
that. So anyway, so my experience in general, when I say, and because I do whatever I say when I say like, because I've been through Russia, Moscow, I do like the people I've met genuinely.
Well, they're
When
pretty
now
like they themselves are, I
generally,
don't know, pretty brainwashed for the most part. I many years ago, I think it was before 2014, I had a
come to
pen pal.
Oklahoma here in the States and let's drive around. Like, yeah, you're gonna run into that for sure.
Yeah, I mean in Russia it's very much
It,
amplified by the very nature of the system that you have.
yeah, I
Like I used to have
no,
a
no, I'm not disagreeing. It's
I
they have a propaganda machine internally
yeah,
that's a genuine marvel of everything, and
and I
their
used
rhetoric,
to
like you were just watching, is genuinely fucking wild.
I used to
Like,
have this pen pal that it was before 2014, and we used to get along great. We used to talk about various things, and I once mentioned, yeah, it's like when Russia lost the war against Japan, and she said, no, we never lost that. I was like, wait, what? What do you mean? Yeah, Russia lost that war. No, it never lost. It didn't win, but it never lost it. I was like, okay,
yeah.
sure.
Plus, one of my favorite little facts about America is there's the first war has no name. The first war America was ever in has no name, called the Unnamed War. It's actually what they call it now historically because we lost. So, so we got our shit handed to us really badly. It's the reason we formed an army. It's a whole thing. Autumn of the Black Snake. It's one of my favorite books of all time. I always love sharing it, but it's not. But again, as I've been, and I've drank with people, and I am a mouthy drunk. Like I'm not a quiet drunk, as you may probably guess from my general activities. If I
Right.
have a bunch of beers in me and I really can hold my liquor,
Right.
I get mouthy. Doesn't matter where I am, I don't care. I've been in Dubai and said stuff that I'm surprised I didn't end up in a well in the embassy or some shit like that. So like
Yeah.
I just do it, and everyone was very like there's almost two sides. This is going to sound weird, and I experienced this. It's unique to, I don't know, I want to say Eastern Bloc countries in general, because there's a conservatism that runs through all of them that is very outward, very, very like, this is how we are. We care about tradition, blah, 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 all that shit.
Yeah.
But then, like, 20 drinks in, if I say something off the fucking wall, if
Yeah.
I say it right, they think it's the funniest fucking thing ever. Slap my back, buy me another round. They'll say some shit and talk some shit. It's a very, whereas here in the States, for example, if I say
Hmm.
some of the shit I've said, I had to have my nose rebuilt because I used to get in so many fights when I was younger because I mouth off at bars when I was drinking.
I had a friend
Um,
at work that used to do boxing, and his nose was in the state that he could press it and it would go flat.
I had mine rebuilt because I actually couldn't breathe through it.
Oh, the colleague at work would just show me. You press his nose and it will go flat.
Pass. Yeah, it's no fun. I have horrifying pictures, by the way, that are hilarious to look at in retrospect. It was painful, it was awful. But more my point, in the States, you say something like that, it's people like, I don't know what the difference is. I don't want to make judgments on people, but it's
Mm-hmm.
different. I found it very pleasant. Now, I know they're more conservative. I knew the bars I was at, people were not anti this or that, and I was very open. They laughed about it. Um, there's an odd cynical nihilism to their beliefs that I almost appreciate, that I experienced there very uniquely. It extends throughout. It's a lot of Eastern Bloc countries have. Poland absolutely has it too. Kiev, I experienced it. Um, it's a really sort of interesting. I don't know. I just found it interesting. I found it enjoyable because it meant like people believe what they do, but they're kind of also aware that they believe what they do, and so it's an odd mix. I found that enjoyable. Now, to your point, I've said that in the past. I've been like, yeah, I love Russians for it. It may
Mm-hmm.
not. Eh, it's because I do lump a lot of people together when I say that, because it's more of a, like, it's a Slavic thing, and I don't know why. For some reason, it's easier for me and less emotionally difficult to say it's the Russian thing. When I say Slavic, it feels like I'm almost saying a slur, and I'm not sure why. Like there's an emotional resonance that's a little different. And I don't, again, I'm more just sort of exploring this aloud and probably getting canceled over it, but I just think it's really fascinating.
Well, in Polish you say Słowiański, Słowianie, etc. From the
Well,
Polish word
it,
for word, słowo.
it's a fascinating difference. But again, all the stuff I love, I'm very aware it tends to come from Poland and other areas, and a lot from Ukraine. Um, I find there's cultural differences, but again, I found out recently, like this old. Uh, if I were to say I loved Russian cinema, no, really, no, maybe not. Maybe it's, at the time it would have been called that, but maybe we
Also,
can call it like,
also keep in mind that is a book that's in English written by a Ukrainian author that I'm going to be starting reading seriously soon said. Keep in mind that Ukraine and Poland, technically speaking, have been a single country for longer than Ukraine has been a part of Russia.
right. Well, and again, um, this is where you get into that really fascinating way that history works, because not in my life, right? I think like that sounds terrible. I'm an American, but it's in my lifetime. No, it's been about half as long. In the timeline of reality and other people's histories and multiple generations, you're the spot on. And so it's this kind of weird, my experience, my ability
Yeah,
to reference the
because of the
thing.
whole Polish Lithuanian Commonwealth that existed.
And especially when you talk about like the US and how we regard other countries for a very long time. And I used to make this joke, it's like it's us and them, like US and
Right.
them, because
Us,
that was
US.
that's how the U.S. handled things. It was like as just that's over there is like Asia. It is Asia. It's like one big
Wow.
thing,
Just
and
like
it's like
just like Western
it's
Europe used to treat the Polish Lithuanian Commonwealth as Asiatic in nature.
yeah. And I think Sister Godiva says talking about ethnicity to me feels worse in some ways. It's a thing again. It's an American thing. It's a very American thing because um, we don't really have ethnicities regarded the same way as they are in other countries.
Hmm.
People who live in other countries, they're able to sort of talk about, their almost family land or where they've lived or where their grandparents live.
Although
I
that gets more complicated as well because
Yeah, but you
before
can at
the
least
emergence of nation states, that sort of thing was sort of not a thing either. The ethnicity thing sort of emerged together with the nation state as well.
the town hall in the very small town where my grandfather lived burned down and then was flooded. We don't know any family records beyond that.
Right.
Done. And everyone since has lived in a different city than their parents.
Right.
So there's a disconnection to it. Also, we're a lot of ethnicities sort of thrown together, and so calling me Polish or Swedish or Irish
You're
or
Polish,
French.
partially.
My grandfather was, and then Pennsylvania Dutch on my other dad's side, and then French on my grandmother's side, and then Irish, and it's all.
And I
But
expect that you speak all of these languages as the polyglot that
I
you are.
I I I don't. I barely speak English. Um, I don't speak any languages except for English, and I read French. I'm learning to read French, but
Oh.
that's more for myself. But it's a really
I still owe you
sort of
that book. I
weird.
still have it.
I found a digital copy and I have translated it, and I am
Okay.
slowly I've read it. We should talk about that in another stream because it's
Yeah.
one of my favorite stories I've ever read. That the world, it's awful. The world doesn't know about it,
I
and I
know.
started figuring
It's
out
really
why.
great, isn't it?
Yeah, the writer who wrote the book though and did a little documentary is like way up his own ass about wanting to make a movie himself, and like he won't let other people touch. It's a really weird thing. It's kind of it's its own. I find stories like that fascinating, how people sort of work against themselves.
Yeah.
But the story is amazing and it can be told
The
by
drag
anyone. And I think
queen soldier that fought against the Nazis.
I the idea that I mean I don't want I it's almost unspeakable how extraordinary the story is. I was just in my head like thinking, how has Tarantino never heard of this and made something? Like, because
Yeah.
it's just the most extraordinarily violent,
Well, that's
sexual, interesting, odd back and forth. And
the answer to that is basically because the stories of those people were just buried.
we erased homosexuality as a victim from the Holocaust. Yeah,
Yeah.
um, they're doing good work to change that, and I think more work can be done. And it because it's not just that. I think there's stories. I want to hear stories of everyone who was a victim, because I think
The pink
how
triangles.
these things happened and how these things worked is fascinating to no end, because it's one of those things that um, again, I'm an American. Thanks to Israel and the work over the last like 40 years of my fucking
Oh,
life.
Poland especially buried the stories of the pink triangles. Like
Oh God, yes.
there's this author of a book, Dem, that I'm still reading, still haven't finished, and she starts the book with saying that years before she went on a tour to the victims of the Holocaust, victims of Nazi Germany, and she asked the sort of the guide, "So who are those people with pink triangles?" And he said, "Well, there were not many of them. They were mostly German. They were basically predatory against other inmates. Hardly victims, really." So,
It's one of those things that um, here in the U.S. we've never dealt with slavery. We really haven't. And Germany and others pretend like they've reckoned with the Holocaust, and they have maybe to some extent. But I think until you really do a real mea culpa, you really spend the time to go, hey, what happened? How bad was it? Mentioning the Romas, for example, mentioning communists and atheists and socialists,
oh yeah,
like
the
the idea
Poraimos,
that
yes?
all of these people, whether it's ethnic or ideological or by birth or whatever, the idea that you can find, and there's smaller groups still. I have a phenomenal read. I one sec, I'll show it off
Okay.
because I can't believe I found it.
But
The weirdest shit.
I would say that at least the Holocaust is being talked about. The Poraimos is almost never mentioned.
I would agree. I mean, there's a lot. Well, there's a once you go to that point, you're talking about there's layers and layers.
Yeah, but the
This is
Poraimos is basically like it was happening alongside the Holocaust. Like the Roma people were the people that basically were sentenced to the same fate as Jewish people, but it's not discussed nearly as much.
so for me, a lot of the thing I'm most interested in is actually less the events itself and more how they got to that point because it
Hmm.
what's produced, I think we know about, and there's people doing amazing work. The more I look into, hey, what started this? There's a lot of there's not a lot of work done.
Hmm.
And so there's this which I've really enjoyed, Weimar Republic Sourcebook. It is these guys just basically got together and they found everything they could that's like published newspaper or magazine articles of the time or excerpts from books and pamphlets,
What's the
and they
time
just put it
period?
together from one second, I want to get right 1918 to 1933.
Okay. Because I know I've read some books of foreign correspondents that I've read their books from the time when they went to Germany in the 30s and how they described how Nazi Germany was in the 30s.
This is kind of that, and it's really fascinating because it's like, for example, here's they have a piece from Carl Schmidt on the contradiction between parliamentarism and democracy, first published as preface to the 1926 edition of whatever, some German fucking book, printed in 1926. And it's just him writing about here's what we're facing today. Basically, anytime someone says that kind of phrase, it's in here. And um, this book, and there's like 3 or 4 others, but there's not a lot of work done on what was the
Mm-hmm.
what was the water before the boil. That's I think, like, what is the forces that were at play on it? What was the things pushing on it?
And
How
there are
was it
many
working?
sort of elements, like even the Herero and
No,
Nama
of course.
genocide was sort of like some people call it the blueprint to what happened later. Even though
Well,
it doesn't directly sort
but
of connect,
but
but
again, for me, it's the entirety of the German people allowing this to happen isn't a thing that like ends up from one person. I don't believe in great man theory. It's a lot
well,
of
the entirety of German people allowing is also a bit of a simplification, but
if the majority of German people had said no, it would have stopped.
yeah, but it's not. It wasn't as openly known as one might assume. After all, the majority of it happened in Poland, for one.
True, but also the rhetoric wasn't the rhetoric matched what was going on, even if they were able to not. But the
Sort
disconnect
of. It
they
was
can
like
make.
it was very like it's like what Marian Turski says, the Polish Jewish historian, the survivor of Auschwitz, that
Mhm.
it's like was sort of this slow process of um, the Jewish people were not able to sit in certain benches, and he gave an example of this sort of lady that very gently sort of would say to a Jewish person, "Oh, this is not your bench. This is your bench," and she didn't mean any harm. She was just like, according to the rules, I'm just, war. I'm just giving you a heads up that you're probably breaking some rule by doing this. She meant well, and Marian Tursky sort of said that little did she probably know that her behavior was a lead up, basically, to what would come later, this sort of slowly getting used to Jewish people being treated differently, being treated
Yep.
worse, etc., etc. That she would probably, if she would be told at that point that that would be a lead up to gas chambers, she'd probably be horrified, you know? And
Yeah.
then the society is slowly sort of getting used to it. Yeah, it's
And
like
it's those steps that I find fascinating because one of the things that isn't studied specifically, and now we're getting to the thing that I care about. is the opposition. So we don't really ever hear about, because there's stories like that. There's all these stories of people who did things that did lead and sort of made their way, but there was counterculture, like that existed. It's not like everyone was just like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, of
Like
course.
there was that, but we don't hear about it. In fact, it was very common. It was very common in Germany for Nazi rallies and communist rallies to be sort of near each other and for people to kind of go between them as if they were
And
Nazis and communists,
like
maybe.
that's how those reporters discovered many people that there was this, and it was in the 30s, so there was, it's not
Mhm.
hindsight 2020 situation. They went there and described in the 30s what was happening, that
Yep.
there was this atmosphere of tension, unease, even discomfort with the whole salute thing, etc.
Mhm.
So it's not like, it's a bit more complicated than
No,
is
it's
often.
it's exactly that. And as I've started to look for books, for stories, for historical work on it, for ethnographies or anything like that, there's very few that are contemporaneous. There's a lot of after the fact, and I don't really enjoy like after the fact things as a read for me historically are
Yeah, although
not as
the
interesting.
it's good to look for like books from reporters that went there at the time.
Yeah, because if it's after the fact, then people are able to go, oh, look, this must have led. And it's like, no, no. So here are two really fun ones I found. There's this one, which is the fascist government of Italy. It's a book written contemporaneously by a political science professor. And one sec, I want to get the year right. It's not on the cover. Sorry.
Now
Um,
we're doing history. Finally, I have an
it's
opportunity to be a history streamer.
1936, the fascist government of Italy. And it is a very dry and boring book about like, oh,
I
the
like
first time in
those.
Italian history, church and state are practically separated. Cavour's ideal, it's like very dry academic, but it's like, oh, here's how they handle labor disputes. Here is the tax services, and here is the tables of what you do. I love shit like this because it's like, oh, here's how income and expenditures worked for taxation amongst
Right.
these people. And so you can start seeing, because of course, if he did this one, he did this one too. And it's holy shit. The most dry reading of like, because again, it's 19, this one's 1935 or six. I don't know if you can see it, but there's his, this is the government. And here
Listen,
is the entire, I
even
love shit
even
like
the
this.
driest book, once you're in the right mood, becomes a great adventure.
Well, it's like because I didn't realize, for example, the Hitler Youth was not some program externally. It was held by the national youth leader who reported directly into the deputy leader who was under the chancellery. Like the bureaucracy of these things is utterly fascinating
Yeah,
because to again, it's one of my things I love is the banality of evil is one of my favorite books on the entire thing. And it's when you talk about the bureaucracy of how it happens, how paperwork moves, how all these things happen,
hmm,
that's where you start to see, in my mind, you can start to see the sort of pieces falling into place
of
and also
course.
see the counteractions when people are speaking against it and how.
Of course, many people have this misconception that Hitler was this big, strong boss who just everybody just bowed to, when in reality he was like this. He was doing this balance act between sort of putting different sort of sub bosses like Goebbels and Himmler, etc.,
Mhm.
against each other, so they fought for their own uh, spheres of influence within their own cabinets, while sort of balancing it with Hitler, etc. It was like a more of a delicate balance than the absolute rule of Hitler. I'm pretty sure Hitler could not just do what Stalin did, for example, just purge them and thank you very much,
You want to say
replaced.
hi to Daddy's friend? No? Okay. Sorry. You want to come play some Ultimate Chicken Horse? All right,
I
I can come play in a minute.
I do like Ultimate Chicken Horse. I've played
Ultimate
that
Chicken Horse
game.
is great. So I kickstarted it and I put him on it about a year ago. My son's 6, and he super got into building. Like if a game has a map maker, he's there. Like it's his favorite thing. And Ultimate Chicken Horse is a map making game, so of
Yeah,
course
and then you have to
it
go
is
through the thing that you build.
and it's very clever. They didn't go as far as they could have, but it's very, very good.
But
All
yeah,
right,
as I've
enough
said,
heavy shit. Time to fight. Right now, best Star Wars movie. Which one is it?
the one that I've seen most as a child. I've seen it over and over and over and over.
Episode 4.
Um, A New Hope.
Yeah, A New Hope is the only good Star Wars movie. That's correct.
Like that's like
Oh,
I've
there
been
you
a
go.
child. There was a period in my childhood when I've seen A New Hope, and that was the only Star Wars I've seen for years. I've never seen any other Star Wars movie, and then I've seen the
too
rest.
much Star Wars. If I can recommend, the other movies are fine. Everyone loves them. I
I've
don't
seen
really care
them,
for them.
but the New Hope is the one that I've seen
It's a masterpiece.
that
It's a
I've heard.
masterpiece of
And
like,
also, it works as a standalone movie. It could just end.
well, it's because it was supposed to.
Yeah,
Um,
it has an
he
ending. It
originally
has
didn't
an
have a
end
trilogy.
ending. They get medals.
That-
Thank you.
Well, the story goes, and I fucking love shit like this. He finished, and they came to him and said, "We want more," and he said, "Oh shit, I don't have more written." So he hired a woman to write new stories, and she wrote basically the plot of the next 2 movies. But he decided he didn't like her, so he fired her and put his name on the scripts, changed a few things, and now she's gone basically from history.
Jesus.
The Clone Wars animated series, the first one by Gindi, who did Samurai Jack, he did Primal,
Which
master-
Samurai Jack ended many, many years later.
Yes, but his Star Wars is one of the best cartoons ever made. And I'm not for a Star Wars cartoon, period, as a cartoon. It is a masterpiece. I have a copy. I'll send you completely legally, I promise, somehow.
Yeah, I
but I'll
actually
send it
never
over.
seen
Great.
the Clone Wars cartoon. I
Yeah,
know I should be
there's one-
ashamed, but I've never seen it.
No, and most people haven't.
But I've
Gindi
heard
got
a
the
lot
right-
about it, and I've even seen clips.
Well, see, have you seen the animated one or the 3D animated one?
Good question.
Because Gindi, who did Samurai Jack, it looks like Samurai Jack's Star Wars. It's beautiful. And it got so popular, lo and behold, they canceled it because it became such a big deal. It was called, people associated with Gindi, not George. So they canceled it, and George started Lucasfilm Animation right afterwards and made what is kind of an abortion of a 3D movie as well as a series. I'm not a fan of almost anything else Star Wars. There's some comics that are great,
Oh.
some books that are very good.
I am
But
biased,
Star
and
Wars-
I think that hand-drawn animation is the best type of animation. But
Well, that's because it is.
yeah,
That's not really a debatable thing. That's
no, it's not
anyone who
for
would
me.
disagree with that. You do what
Especially,
you have to.
especially since I consider myself a bit of an animator myself.
I fault nobody for using whatever tools they have to. So if time is just the way it is and you have to put in CG or whatever,
Right.
fine. I don't fault anyone. But if you
Right.
can,
Observe.
hand drawn,
even-
there's nothing like
probably
it.
noticed that
I-
my profile picture on Discord is animated.
Have you seen Redline?
No.
The animation?
Red line? What is it about?
It's like an anime racing thing.
Oh
It
no,
is.
then no.
It's like my favorite. It's one of my favorite hand drawn. Just the style. It's like I grew up. Heavy metal was like one of the big animated things. Couldn't believe it got made. It's like this crazy.
Are you a
visual,
KOTOR fan?
like, fest. Knights of the Old Republic, of course.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
played it on the Xbox.
Coder's good. Coder 2's fine. I'm not as big into the extended universe of all of it, but I really enjoyed the games more because, honestly, because of the people who made it, by the people behind it, especially Obsidian, who I happen to be friends with a few people there and all that. It had the pedigree from the original Fallout, for God's sake.
Oh, I should play the original Fallout games on stream at some point. The 2 games.
You should, because they're very, very, very good.
I mean, I've played the second Fallout the most of all Fallout games.
Me too. Fallout 2 is one of those. I have very few games that I have like rose tinted glasses for that I wasn't aware of. I went back recently. I played Fallout 2. Fallout 2 is a masterpiece, except when it's terrible. which sounds awful to say, but there are things in there that like I like almost put out of my head, where it's
To be
like,
fair, it's an old
wait,
game.
dude, mm, no,
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 it's not an
no,
excuse.
no, because it's Fallout 1 doesn't do the same shit. There's a
Okay.
mission in Fallout 2 of like a dog finds you like Lassie and takes you to Timmy who fell down a well. I want to fucking like I hate that. I hate that.
Okay,
Uh
I get it.
I came across the fucking bridge where the guy goes, "You may pass if you answer these questions 3. What is your favorite color?" And it's like, "Oh fuck you. I get it."
But you can get a car.
Um I the parts of Fallout that are brilliant, and it's mostly brilliant. And it's amazing. The one of the lead designers of Fergus Urquhart, who's the CEO of Obsidian, uh, and Fergus is genuinely a wonderful, warm, amazing human being. I've been fortunate to get to know him over the years, and he is, and I mean that. Yet I don't say that about a lot of people in games. A lot of people in games are fucking cocksuckers, but he's great and just a wonderful, like cares about all his people, cares about everyone who works for him, cares about
And
the
then
projects he makes.
Bethesda decided that it would make better Fallout games.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean they let Obsidian made New Vegas.
Yeah, and it's better than 3 or 4, so
Yeah, it is.
so so no, I was saying that sarcastically when I said that Bethesda decided it can do better
Well, I mean,
Fallout games.
this is where you get fun. Is now they're all technically the same company. So,
Yeah, and yet
I
New Vegas is still the best one of the 3D.
well, they haven't had a chance to do the next Fallout,
Yeah, but I
and
know
they and
Bethesda.
well, but that's my point. Is Obsidian and Bethesda are the same company now.
Yeah, but it's not guaranteed that they will hand over to the
No,
Obsidian
but
team.
did you play the Starship game that they just put out?
No.
That was awful. Like it's the most Bethesda game a Bethesda game can be,
Mhm.
and it's really awful.
Mhm.
Um, like genuinely terrible. Fallout was so good though. God damn, Fallout was good.
Yeah.
Fallout Tactics was great. I don't care what
Oh,
anyone
should
says. Fallout
play it.
Tactics was even good.
They should play
Have
it.
you played any of the mods?
No.
You son of a bitch. This dude who is outside of Moscow, I think, uh, all of his mods are originally in his language, and I think he translates it to like a few other Slavic languages.
Polish?
They're the best mods on the planet, and I have to sit and wait until the English version comes out. Uh, they're amazing. The stories are good. It's in the Fallout universe, and it's in Fallout 2's engine. So
Hmm.
just a
Oh,
thing to look for. I'll send over a few links.
thank you.
It's so great. Like, because I really love Fallout 2 did a thing. Fallout 1, I think, did it as well, but Fallout 2 did it better. Of this weird feeling of like, I can do anything,
Yeah.
but I don't want to. Like, I never got upset that I couldn't, like, fly like an eagle or anything, but it felt like if I wanted to figure out a way, I could, but I didn't
A
want to.
jetpack.
Yeah, but it like kept you angled in the right directions, but you were free to do so very much.
Yeah.
I became a prostitute for a while.
That is
Um,
something that basically the Bethesda Fallout games take away.
oh yeah, no, they don't want you to.
Like the
They don't.
biggest the
They're
biggest sell
terrible.
of the Fallout games, I'm pretty sure you can do it in 1, 2, and New Vegas, that you can just finish them without really firing any shots.
Well, but again, for me, all of those games, they're stories. They're story games. Fallout 2, the story is irrelevant. Like genuinely, if I were like most people I've asked, what is the story of Fallout 2?
Well, the
And
story of Fallout 2 is that the old government wants back. Wants to be back in the game.
that's a story of Fallout 2. This is why I really like that game. Arroyo is falling apart, and you need to go do thing X. Or it's the master and his goo have sort of semi-returned. Or is it like, and you just start seeing these sort of, it's all these different power structures that
Yeah,
exist, and
it's a
they
lot
all,
about the choices.
it's amazing that way. And whereas, and I again, I think Fallout New Vegas is probably the best of the new Fallouts. I thought Fallout 3 did a fine job.
Mhm.
4, I couldn't really stand very long.
Fallout,
but
everybody just sits and crafts their little bases, and that's mostly
and
what people do.
that's what it is. And so when you end up with Fallout New Vegas though and 3, they're stories, a story specifically.
Hmm.
And I'm not faulting the designers for that. Like it's just the way they did it. But Fallout was never about a story. That's actually the thing that makes it what it is in my mind.
Well, that was more role play.
It was exploring.
Hmm.
Yeah. There's not a lot of games that really let you do it the same way Fallout did.
Hmm.
But those mods are good. The mods are good. We're checking out. Beyond that, it's like Stalker is the only other game that kind of comes close to that.
Stalker. Have to play it more on stream.
Stalker's so good.
Have to play it more on stream.
God, I love
I
it.
started playing it on stream, but I have to play it more. I do believe I won our debate, though.
You did. You were victorious, and it was because of my microphone. I'm going to blame it on that, and I'm going to bow out and claim that I failed miserably, and I apologize.
Thank you. Thank you for this.
Always lovely, Lucy. May you do well, and enjoy the rest of your stream.
Thank you.
I'm going to go play Chicken Horse.
Bye-bye. Ultimate Chicken Horse.
Ultimate Chicken Horse.
Yeah. I've played it
All
a
right.
lot with friends. Bye-bye.
It's great. I'll see you soon.
See you.